So this next way of creating dye stock is a more precise way. It is done by weight in grams of both dye powder and water. I'm going to be using some parchment paper that I'm going to cut into square so that I can place it on my scale. You can also buy pre-cut squares or rounds to use on your scale. You will need to get a scale, such as a jewelry scale like this one, that is precise down to 0.01 grams. And with my parchment paper on the scale, I go ahead and turn it on and make sure it is tared to 0. And I'm going to be making a 1% dye stock solution, and that entails using 1 gram of dye powder to 100 grams of water. I am using the royal purple color from Dharma Trading Company. And I'm going to carefully measure the dye powder onto the parchment paper, which is covering the plate of the scale. And I'm going to get it to 1.0 grams. And that is exactly where I am there. And in case you didn't know, 100 grams of water equals 100 milliliters of water. So from here, I'm going to tip my dye powder into my jar. There is a little residue left on the parchment paper. You can rinse that off. And I'm going to measure 100 milliliters into my measuring cup. I'm using boiling water as before. And now I'm going to mix the two together into my jam jar. I also like to use empty pasta sauce jars and that sort of thing. Use what you have on hand. There's really no need to buy any new jars to mix your dye stock in. It's perfectly good to reuse your jars. Just remember, anything that has been touched by acid dye cannot be used for general purpose cooking or eating and that sort of thing. A 1% dye stock solution is a pretty strong concentration. It is even stronger than the method that I normally use, my 1 teaspoon to 1 cup ratio. And so if you choose to do it this way, just note your solutions will be very strong in color, and just remember to always make your dye stock in the same way so that there is no confusion as to what your concentration of dye stock is. So now I'm going to give you a little tip on how to create dilutions from your stock solutions. I like using these plastic syringes. I measure out a quantity of dye stock and I mix it with water, and make sure you keep notes on your dilutions so that you can repeat your colors more accurately. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time. If you have any questions about dyeing wool or yarn, you can ask me over on patreon.com/Allison Barnes Yarn.